Although some people may not realize it, every time you communicate with someone, there are at least two forms of communication going on. Most people would only think of verbal communication as part of the conversation, but there is also a nonverbal part that is just as important, if not more. As defined at dictionary.com, nonverbal communication is those aspects of communication, such as gestures and facial expressions, that do not involve verbal communication, but which may include nonverbal aspects of speech itself. Examples are accent, tone of voice, speed of speaking, etc. This is something that affects anything from the meaning of our everyday messages to something like how we are perceived for an interview for a job. I want to inform you all about this topic because it is something that we are all involved in, and it could help someone down the road by having the correct body language to get a message across. The main concepts of verbal communication I would like to touch on today are body language and tone of voice. Since I've told you what we are talking about today, let's start off with the first topic of body language. Body language is one of the main things that convey our message when talking to someone and shows them we are interested. Body language is so important in an interview that in December of 2016, Michael Page, who is part of a recruiting firm in the UK, stated on his website that the way you compose yourself and the body language you display during an interview can have as much bearing on the outcome as your ability to actually do the job. Gestures are just one part of that contributes to body language. Here in this clip from the show Friends, you will see how Ross and Joey use air quotes in ways to get their messages across, whether they realize it or not.
Let's put aside the fact that you accidentally picked up my grandmother's ring and you accidentally proposed to Rachel. People do this. I don't really know what that means. I'm sorry.
Recently in my own life, I've had some interviews in order to get an internship for this coming summer. In each one, I made sure to sit up straight and show confidence and use my hands an appropriate amount when talking so that it did not take over what I was saying. While I do not think this is the only thing that got me the internship, I believe it helped to set me apart from the others along with my previous experience. Now that I have talked about body language as a form of verbal communication, I would like to move on to tone of voice. Tone of voice may seem like it would not be part of nonverbal communication, but it is very much so since it is conveying how you deliver your message. In an article from December of 2011 titled Truth, Telling the Truth, and Being Truthful, Affect Nonverbal Communication and the Constitution of Ethical Relationship by Michael Harmon, he states that in face-to-face context, language's emotive content can be sensed directly and the meanings it produces can be continually mediated, clarified, and revised by, among other means, voice, tone, and bodily gesture. Here I'll show an example of how tone of voice plays a huge role in communication by putting emphasis on two different words of a sentence. For example, I didn't say the mess was for me, I didn't say the mess was for me. You can hear how the sentence changes meaning even though it has the exact same words in it both times. One way I can see that tone of voice plays a huge role in conversation is when talking at my dog. I can say something like, "You're a bad dog," in a happy and cheerful tone, and he will think I am praising him for something good he has done. This happens because he does not necessarily understand words I am saying, but instead the tone of my voice from past experiences of being good or bad. As we can see, there are two huge ways that nonverbal communication is presented when having a conversation with someone. While there are many forms of nonverbal communication out there, I have covered how body language and tone of voice are two major aspects of it. I am hoping that you all realize that this is something that plays a part in everyday life. I have listed some ways that will help you see how you can more clearly display your message by doing simple things such as sitting up straight or changing your tone of voice on certain words. With that being said, in order to effectively communicate with someone, you must realize that a conversation involves verbal and nonverbal communication, both of which are equally important.